This is fluid coding and AI. Liquid's LFM2 24B A2B looks like the local model people want, 24 billion total parameters, only around 2 billion active per token, LM Studio support and offline workflows. But in our LM Studio benchmark run, it did not behave like a reliable general coding assistant. So the real question is sharper. Is this a coding model, a local tool router, or something in between? The practical question is not whether LFM2 24B A2B can generate text. It can. The question is whether a developer should trust it as a local coding assistant or use it in a narrower role. By the end, you should have a clean answer: what Liquid built, what LM Studio makes practical, what our benchmark actually measured, and where this model still makes sense if you care about private local AI. Liquid describes LFM2 24B A2B as an early checkpoint and its largest LFM2 model. The headline is sparse mixture of experts, 24 billion total parameters, but only about 2 billion to 2.3 billion active for each token. That matters because local inference is usually a memory and throughput fight. Liquid is trying to keep more model capacity on disk while activating a smaller slice during generation. The other important design choice is the LFM2 architecture itself. Liquid says the model combines efficient gated short convolution blocks with grouped query attention blocks instead of relying on a plain attention-only stack. The model card lists 40 layers, 30 convolution blocks, 10 attention blocks, a 32,768 token context length, and a training budget of 17 trillion tokens. Those numbers explain why the release got attention from local AI users. LM Studio is the practical bridge for most local users. The community GGUF repository lists quantized files for this model, including Q4KM at 14.4 GB, Q6K at 19.6 GB, and Q80 at 25.4 GB. LM Studio can download supported Hugging Face models, run them locally, keep chat and document processing offline, and expose OpenAI-like local endpoints. That makes this model easy to test in real desktop workflows. Here is the first reality check. Liquid does not primarily sell this as a coding model. The model card calls it a general-purpose instruct model without reasoning traces, and recommends it for agentic tool use, offline document summarization and question answering, privacy-preserving support agents, and local retrieval augmented generation pipelines. It also explicitly says Liquid does not recommend the model for coding because it was not optimized for that purpose. Our benchmark evidence comes from a local report labeled LM Studio/Liquid LFM2 24B A2B across an all benchmark suites run. It includes coding, data interpretation, planning operations, quantitative reasoning, safety policy, source research, and writing editing cases. But the report does not isolate hardware, quantization, prompt format, sampling settings, LM Studio version, or backend. So this is not a universal model score. It is a scoped local benchmark run. The headline result was 691 out of 2,172, or 31.81%. That sounds precise, but the scoring scale is mixed. Coding tasks are scored out of 100 each, while non-coding tasks appear to be scored out of 1 each. So the honest read is not, this model got 31% at everything. The honest read is that this run exposed broad reliability problems in the tested suite. The coding section is the part most viewers care about. There were 21 coding cases and everyone was marked failed, even though many received partial credit. The best coding scores were 55 out of 100 on the command line word counter and the settings service. Several hard and very hard coding tasks scored 15 out of 100. In this run, LFM2 24B A2B did not look like a dependable autonomous coding assistant. The non-coding results did not rescue the story. Quantitative reasoning scored 0 out of 12. Source research scored 1 out of 12. Data interpretation scored 1 out of 12. Planning operations and safety policy each scored 2 out of 12. Writing and editing was the strongest non-coding section at 5 out of 12, with passes in grammar, tone choice, active voice, headline, and scope control. That is useful, but it is not the same as reliable task execution. Now the counterpoint. Liquid's own local cowork test points in a different direction, local tool dispatch. In that first-party test, LFM2 24B A2B ran on an Apple M4 Max laptop with 36 GB of unified memory using Q4KM GGUF through Llama server. Liquid reported about 385 milliseconds average tool selection response time, about 14.5 GB of memory in that setup, and 80% single-step tool selection accuracy across 100 prompts. The same local cowork story also reports only 26% end-to-end completion for multi-step chains. That is the gap between the model picked a plausible tool and the agent completed the workflow. For local automation, that distinction is everything. Fast dispatch can be valuable when a human confirms steps, checks outputs, and keeps the workflow bounded. It is much riskier when the model is expected to drive a long chain alone. So where does LFM2 24B A2B fit? Based on the sources, the strongest case is not autonomous coding. It is a local assistant for private documents, retrieval augmented generation, summarization, structured tool routing, support workflows, and fast human-in-the-loop operations. If your goal is replacing a cloud coding assistant, this evidence says wait or test very carefully. If your goal is keeping sensitive context local while routing tools and summarizing documents, the model is much more interesting. There are two practical footnotes. First, local still means local hardware matters. Liquid says the model was designed to fit in 32 GB of RAM, and the quantized GGUF files still range from 14.4 to 25.4 GB. Second, open weight does not mean no license constraints. The LFM open license is Apache 2.0 based, but companies at or above $10 million in annual revenue need a commercial license for commercial use. My verdict is simple. LFM2 24B A2B is worth watching as a fast local mixture of experts model, especially for private workflows and guided tool use. But from this LM Studio benchmark run, I would not choose it as my primary coding agent. The honest label is not bad model. It is promising local infrastructure model with a serious coding assistant reality check. Test it where Liquid says it is strong, and be careful where the benchmark says it is weak. If this helped you separate local model hype from practical developer fit, like the video and subscribe to Fluid Coding and AI. I will keep testing local models where the promise meets real workflow pressure, especially when benchmarks, tool use, and privacy claims do not all point in the same direction.